Here with Super Bowl winning head coach, the Baltimore Ravens, Brian Billick, having gone through this experience and experienced success on the back end of the experience, what do you think is the biggest key for a coach in terms of navigating this week and the ways it's different from other weeks?
Well, unique to some other games that we've covered here is both these teams have experience in the week, and it's just that, Lindsay, you're exactly right. How do you manage the week? Because it's like no other week that you experience during the course of the year, even the championship game. And how to navigate, you had the week off, and navigating that to make sure that you got done what you needed to get done. And then coming into here with all of what's going on. And you know your players are going to be exposed to it.
Yeah.
And so how do you navigate for them? How do you get them to, from Wednesday on, because obviously Monday, Tuesday is just a madhouse. But when you get back to the practice field on Wednesday, now it's, okay, how do I normalize this? How do I make this feel like your normal preparation? Because we can do that. And again, sell them on the idea that even though it's in a forum like none you've ever been a part of, the game is still the game.
Right.
It's the game that we've won so many of to get here, to get them comfortable with the fact that, yes, it's going to kick off, and I got to tackle and I got to catch, and the flow of the game you want to normalize as quick as you can.
For the kickoff, all of the flashing lights. After
Right.
the kickoff, now we're back to business.
Right.
So, SumerSports, you remember, you were such an important part at the kickoff of this
Yeah, thank you.
almost 3 years ago,
Yeah.
right? We brought you in as one of the head coaches of all of our research on where SumerSports is. We started with 3 back then. We did those ideation pods.
Right.
You were such an important part. We're 3 years later, we're 75 strong, a lot going on here.
Right.
Can't wait to bring you up to date on it. You have always been on the cutting edge of football, right? You obviously highly intelligent, wide aperture. Can you talk to us a little bit about how things are changing since, those earlier years when you were involved to now what you see?
The things now is all about analytics.
Yep.
And I still do a lot of corporate speaking and interacting with organizations and like everybody experiencing this avalanche of technology. And coming to realize that in the Baltimore Ravens, when I was there, we didn't have any analytics staff. Now I think that's 10, 12 guys in the building. The key to me with the analytics and all the technology is the marriage of art science.
Yep.
The science of the analytics, which are undeniable and fact-based, versus the art of the institutional knowledge. Like the commercial, I've seen a few things, so I know a few things.
That's right.
And balancing that with to me, the analytics is a little like the combine, in the sense that rather than thinking that this will be my answer, the analytics will tell me exactly what to do. No, the analytics send me back to the film.
Yep.
Just like the combine. You go to the
That's a
combine
great
and it's
analogy.
okay. I saw the film. I think the player's good, but then I see him on the field in the combine and I see his measurables and it doesn't add up.
Totally.
If I like the film, I like him in shorts, and I like the numbers, great. Done. Check off the box.
Yeah.
But if it's a guy that I had one opinion looking at film and another seeing him live, take me back to the film. Make me go. So analytics is, if it supports what I'm thinking and looking at, great. It's a check. But if not, it's, well, send me back to the workroom to make me double check my assumptions of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Can the analytics push me in a direction that I ought to be going?
It's such a good analogy, I think, because in the same way that you wouldn't draft somebody solely because they ran a fast 40,
Which
right at
people
the
do.
combine,
Which
you
people do,
also,
right?
Which people do.
Right, and so people make mistakes
Exactly
all
right.
across the board by overvaluing one thing or the other, and the same can be said for analytics. I love that analogy. Do you think that there's anything that has popped out to you that you think you would do differently now if you had the information available to the coaches now? Like, there's been so much talk about going for it on fourth down or going for 2 in certain situations of the game. Have you found yourself saying, I think I would do that
Yeah,
now?
that balance, the fourth down, which everybody's enamored with. And I remember years ago when that first started coming into vogue. And I always said, and it makes sense. The analytics tell you that fourth and less than 1.5, the percentages are that this will be the predictive outcome. 2 things. If you can last long enough to average it out. And I always said, okay, if I'm gonna go for it on 4th and 1 on my own 20 against the Pittsburgh Steelers, I want that MIT Digit Domo standing next to me. So everybody in the stands knows this is the guy that says I should go for that. So again, it goes back to that balance of the analytics say do this, but my institutional knowledge says this, the cost benefit ratio going for 2 points at the end of the game or at a critical time, that has all changed in terms of how much earlier you're going to do that, because it's a points driven game. You have to maximize the points that you're getting. I'm a little surprised, and I think we could actually get there, where people basically do away with the extra point kick. Because like the fourth down, you know what, in the game, if the average scoring is going up, I need maximize my points. Can I steal an extra point per score? And that makes a difference. I'm waiting for someone to do that. So there's all that kind of, but at the end of the day, the game is still the game.
Yeah.
The times you're in situational offense or defense and what you need to be prepared for, do that. I have a lot more information to help me make that determination, but the game itself has stayed incredibly the same in terms of the situations you're in and how often you're going to face them and how you need to prepare your players for them.
In the spirit of change and fast-paced, different NFL than you and I were used to years ago, let's talk a little bit about coaching process, hiring and GM and the pairing. Can you comment on that from a big picture? Like, are you for it?
No, it's like it's a GM's game now. Has been for a little while. And I don't say that critically.
I understand.
That because where is the power in the decision making on cap, personnel, those key decisions in terms of even the staff that you're putting together? It appears, and I'm not trying to be judgmental about it, what organizations are looking for now are glorified coordinators. It's kind of like, okay, I'm gonna make you my head coach. You got a background in great defense or great offense, but I'll take care of all the other things. Okay, you just lock yourself in your office. We'll shove your meals under the door, and you come up with these genius game plans, and we'll let you be the head coach, and you get a good counterbalance on the defensive side. And I think that's what they're looking for now. And then that eventually evolves into coaches that then have a presence of being more of what you and I are used to, the traditional command presence of a head coach, a more comprehensive look at it. I think an untapped resource that people have not taken full advantage of as head coaches is the special teams coordinators.
Oh.
To me, because you think about this. One, they have to work with the entire team.
Yeah.
They have to get a lot of guys to do things they really don't want to do. They have to evaluate talent outside the box of, is he a good linebacker? Is he a good tight end? Well, can he give me 13 to 18 snaps athletically in this capacity? So I have to judge his talent a little bit differently. And so I think those guys, John Harbaugh is a perfect example of a guy that had that background. Of course, he grew up a coach's son and the like. But I think, to answer your question, always looking for good talent from the coaching profession, that's one that people ought to, but it's not as high profile. I'm going to get the flavor of the month offensive or defensive coordinator.
Well, I want to ask you about that, because I have maintained, and I think I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, that it's a totally different skill set to be a head coach than it is to be a great offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator. So you can be the best offensive coordinator in the league, and people can hire you as a head coach, and you have no idea if he's going to be a good head coach. Can you explain the ways that job is different?
It's an interesting dynamic, because I always think of it as particularly on the offensive side. When you're an offensive coordinator, it is 24/7, 365. I call it the 3 a.m. rule. You know, you always wake up at 3 and do what you do at 3 a.m. And what are you thinking about? Well, as a coordinator, do I put the guy in the flat? Am I going to put this guy at this depth? I mean, it's all consuming. Then you get a head job. And those that want to hold on to it and say, well, I'm going to do that, and I'm also going to do the head coaching thing. That's a little disrespectful of, no, there are things that you need. If that's what you're going to do, then you better have some strong people with you. Who's waking up at 3 a.m. worrying about personnel? Right. Who's waking up at 3 a.m. worrying about the structure of practice or the way we're traveling or the system of what we're doing? You better have a good,
like messaging.
Exactly,
right? Like,
the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
So you need, most coaches that come in evolve to where they turn that other thing over, which quite frankly, it's great fun. I mean, you love, it's fun calling plays. It's fun,
right.
But you got to turn that over. The good coaches, the ones that last the longest time, and there's counter examples to that, are the guys that truly evolved into becoming a head coach and making sure that they're the multitude of things. And that's where the new young coach, I'm always asked that, well, what was the biggest? I remember when I got the job, you work your whole life to become a head coach, you go through the process, you get the interview, and you sit down at the desk for the first time and go, holy, what the hell do I do now?
Right. Where do I start?
And you just
what are the
do the next thing. That the scope of that as a head coach, although now, as we alluded to earlier, I think it's changed a little bit because more of that is being absorbed at the GM level, and all the number, just the sheer number of people. There were 12 guys on my staff when I left Baltimore. Baltimore staff currently doing the same thing, I think, is between 30 and 35 guys.
Wow.
So it has
an
grown in
explosion.
terms of a number, and the field has demanded it because the players are used to personal. So the defensive line coach has an assistant defensive. Everybody has an assistant to give you that hands-on, almost one-on-one interaction with the players, because that's what they expect.
Yeah. Well, and you got to process all the data that's coming in and all the tape and all of the different things. We work obviously in a tech space. I know that you are also involved in something that is technical, as we can see on your sweatshirt there. Tell us about the shoulder pads.
Yeah, we're so excited. 13 years that we've been at this. X-Tech Pads is now the #1 pad in professional football, more than 90%. The majority of players on both teams, Kansas City and Philadelphia, are in X-Tech Pads. Major colleges, major high schools. What I'm most excited about is we're now getting down into the youth market. I have 2 grandsons, and the pads that they're wearing till now, you'd be better off putting a couple rolled up T-shirts on their shoulder. Because the pad, what do? We take the head out of the game.
Yeah.
Well, that just means the shoulder pads. And you're exactly right. The advanced technology that X-Tech Pad represents in the pad. In the old days, and I'm an old guy, it's big guys got big pads and little guys got little pads. Now, particularly AI driven, the pads are form fitted basically based on your height, your weight, your position, your injury history, your age, because it isolates obviously what player A needs at 15 years old, and he's a lineman, versus the 20-year-old wide receiver. It basically, the technology has form fitted it to where you're putting the protection where you need it, rather than the old school, we'll just put a big pad on and maybe that will protect them.
With a neck roll.
With the neck roll, right. Same thing with the helmets, right? It's becoming much more, where it used to be just put a big helmet on them. Yeah. Now it's much more technically driven. Where are the impact points and how do we absorb that impact to minimize the concussions? The pads are the same way, and X-Tech Pads is leading the field.
Love it.
Thanks for stopping by to catch
Great,
up
this
with
is
us
great.
here. This has been fun.